RRR versus MCU. Quite interesting. We have a video essay here by MC Thomas, who made a video why RRR works and MCU's Phase 4 doesn't. Now it's been some time, Phase 4 ended, Phase 5 first film is also out, and it was not that, amazing. It was fine. So let's see if this video answers that question, why it's happening. If you haven't seen the original video, I'll put the link in the description. You can check it out and give that video a thumbs up.
After Avengers Endgame wrapped up the Infinity Saga with a satisfying conclusion, Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been mostly disappointing, which is a topic that's already been covered in detail by a lot of other YouTubers. That's not to say that Phase 4 hasn't had its share of good moments, but the MCU doesn't seem to...
I actually saw Shang-Chi again and I liked it a lot first time. Second time, I didn't like it that much. I felt it was very inconsistent and pacing-wise was very off.
...is consistently revered by moviegoers like it once was. In my opinion, Phase 4 has had an oversaturation of content, and with the exception of the sensational No Way Home, a lot of this phase was dull, goofy, and in a few cases, even inconsiderate of its main characters. Now, I just want to say at the outset that this video isn't about being a Marvel hate fest. I absolutely loved Phases 1 through 3, and given the introduction of Kang, as well as Marvel's willingness to push release dates back rather than rushing things, I'm holding out hope that we can get some good content in Phase 5 and beyond. But now I want to shift the focus over to RRR, an Indian-made Tollywood film that released in 2022 that can currently be seen on Netflix. For the sake of this video, I'll simply refer to it as R3. That's a little bit easier to say. It's an epic action drama about two Indian revolutionaries fighting against English colonialists in the 1920s. R3 is 3 hours long, has some questionable CGI, acting that can get a little hokey, over-the-top action sequences, and it's one of my top films of the year. R3 and MCU...
I like the framing of that sentence.
Phase 4 are both guilty of the things I just mentioned, yet R3 made a stronger impression and left me full of awe and emotion once the credits rolled. So, what sets this movie apart? What does R3 have that many of the recent MCU films don't?
One thing I can say, as you said, right, emotion. You feel connected with these characters all 3 hours long. But also the other part is that MCU is like a whole interconnected universe, like to build up to an Infinity War Endgame, you need to, go through all those films and stories. And you cannot directly compare it with RRR because it's just a one-off film. Sequel is coming, let's see how that works out, but at least at this point it's a one-off thing, so that comparison is not that possible. But the best films of MCU for me, Civil War is one of the favorites, and you feel connected because our characters go through things, you feel emotional, you feel in rhythm with them, and they go through something, so we feel it. And there's, consequences to what they are doing. And same happens in this. So I think that's what's missing in today's Marvel.
I'll be excluding No Way Home from my criticisms of Phase 4 because, honestly, that movie brought a level of quality that makes it an anomaly in this phase. So without further ado, I've got 5 simple reasons why I think R3 works more effectively than the MCU's Phase 4. Reason number 1, R3 respects...
This is, I think, a small channel, just 1,000 subscribers, guys. If you like the video, definitely subscribe to it. I think that's why the quality is not that good and they just tried whatever they could. That's amazing.
Its main characters. From the very first act, it's made incredibly clear that Raju and Beam are front and center. Each of them get epic and memorable introductions, with Raju fighting his way through thousands of people in an angry mob and Beam capturing a friggin' tiger in the woods. These two are physically imposing, intelligent, and charming. They make the major decisions that drive the plot forward. They go through the biggest character arcs. They have the big hero moments. There's no being sidelined by secondary characters, no being made into a big joke, and no ensemble cast where you wonder who the main character is.
But also that, because they've already gone through it. So if they do it again, it'll be very repetitive, right? Like Thor has gone through so much in his life as we have seen it through the films, that what else will you do to him, So you make him a joke. That's the thing, right? That's what happened.
R3, the 2 main characters take charge of the story, as they should. The lead actors are both charismatic and giving their all with these performances. It seems like they're having the time of their life. Raju is the fire, Beam is the water, and they make for 2 truly unforgettable protagonists. Reason number 2, R3 takes the ordinary world and makes it extraordinary.
I always say this. Either your character should be extraordinary in an ordinary world, or your ordinary character should be in an extraordinary world. That's where you create conflict and tension. If it's ordinary world, ordinary character, or extraordinary world, extraordinary characters, you can do that, but then you need to have some big conflict where you make it interesting.
Problem with the MCU lately is that they've managed to take
Man, the
fantastical
CG is so
worlds and
bad.
monsters and make them boring, while R3 takes ordinary events, animals, and settings and makes them feel larger than life.
Yep.
I remember a time when the MCU was relatively grounded.
Watching Iron Man again, you'll be shocked. Like, what a different world and universe that was.
Iron Man was the introduction to the cinematic universe, and it was before any kind of supernatural powers, aliens, or alternate dimensions were introduced.
Yep.
Seeing Tony Stark fight aliens for the first time was surreal and
Yep.
exciting, simply because it was
Ordinary, extraordinary.
so far removed from the reality he knew at that time. Guardians of the Galaxy made the MCU even weirder, but in a good way. The worlds that we see in that movie are creative and visually appealing. But lately, the CGI and green screen
Oh my
backgrounds
God,
of
this
many MCU
scene.
films are getting less and less appealing. There's a meme going around comparing MCU green screens to the Spy Kids movies, which is meant for laughs, but there is a hint of truth there. Whether we're in
Okay.
another dimension, Omnipotent City, or Valhalla, these settings all seem to bleed together and start to become boring.
That's true.
Same goes for the creatures
That's
that
true.
our heroes battle. Giant monster attacking the city? Seen it. Nameless army of creatures for our heroes to fight? Seen it.
Yep.
Beam's race across the forest, however, and his battle against the tiger was more thrilling to me than most of the recent
Yes.
MCU monster battles.
And that says it a lot, like why the scene works. There's so many videos breaking it down that it's so well done. Like without dialogues, both introduction scenes of our characters in Triple R, there's no dialogue.
And to be fair, the effects on the animals in R3 aren't perfect either, but the budget for R3
It
was
works.
around the equivalent of 72 million US dollars. The average MCU film's budget typically has at least twice that amount, so there isn't as
Yep.
much of an excuse there.
$150, $200.
And I don't even think the
$1 million.
artists themselves are to blame. Reportedly, Marvel has a tendency to give demanding and
This is a very well researched video.
unrealistic deadlines and workloads for their visual effects. What R3 does so well is it makes the real world feel almost like a fantasy world. Every setting,
Yeah.
from the forest to the governor's mansion, is grand and extraordinary. The scene where Raju fights through the
A lot of practical, sets and everything.
mob is a visual marvel. It's truly amazing how many extras the filmmakers got for the scene. While I've become somewhat desensitized to the MCU's worlds and creatures, I was thrilled by the exaggerated version of our
Wow.
world created by R3.
That's the wallpaper.
Reason number 3, the stakes. Let's look at the MCU first. How many times does the world, the universe, or the
Yep.
multiverse
Every
have to
movie.
be at stake? Lately,
Every
pretty much
movie.
every movie introduces a massive world-destroying threat. Shang-Chi, Eternals, Multiverse of Madness, and Wakanda Forever were all guilty of this. But here's the
Wakanda, maybe not. I think that's why it works because it's more of a self-contained narrative. It's not about if whoever wins at the end of the battle, world will end. No, it's just about the politics between them.
thing. We know that the MCU is going to be around for a while, so do we
Yep.
really believe that the world is going to end in any of these movies?
Nah.
Going bigger with the stakes doesn't always make them more compelling. Sometimes the most engaging stories have stakes that are more personal.
Yep.
R3, for example, focuses on one character trying to save a little girl, and another tries to give his village the means to defend themselves. These stakes are relatively small when compared to the MCU,
And personal to each other, right? And that's where the conflict begins.
but they feel more important
what is more
because
important?
R3 does such a thorough job at showing us why these goals are so important to our main characters. The little girl who gets kidnapped, Molly, is shown to be like a little sister to Beam. And in Raju's
You got
case,
that
we
right
get an
also?
emotional
She's not
flashback
real
where he
sister to her?
fights British colonialists alongside his father, whose dying wish is for him to provide protection for every single member of the village. We see the backstory of Raju's village and instantly want him to get justice, just
Yep.
like we want to see Beam rescue Molly. There's also the personal stakes between Raju and Beam. We spend a lot of time watching their brotherhood blossom,
Yep.
and it's heartbreaking when we realize that their separate goals eventually cause them to clash and test their friendship. The friendship between these men means more to me than the universe possibly getting destroyed, showing that
Yep.
having stakes that are
That's good storytelling.
well written and compelling means a lot more than stakes that simply try to go big. Reason number 4.
All 3 points have been great.
R3 has more poignant and personal drama. It starts off with a pretty intense scene where the governor and his wife trick an Indian family into taking their daughter, Molly.
And I've noticed like this is the first 5 minutes of the film, and most people when they start sit to watch a film, they watch first 5 minutes, and you're instantly hooked because you feel like a crime has happened, it's wrong, and you need justice. She should come back. Now, how you have to watch the whole film for that? So you're instantly hooked into the film. No establish who are these people, what they do. We don't have to do anything. Crime has happened. You feel it's wrong. How can you take someone's daughter giving 2 coins? That's it. And you can see with your eyes, it's a race is different. Even if you don't know about British in India, something like that, you don't need those information. It's so clear, and it's visually clear. Without just remove the dialogues, mute the film, you'll understand what's happening.
The movie doesn't shy away from the horrors of human trafficking, colonization, and oppression. Young Raju's backstory is also heart-wrenching as we see why he needs to infiltrate the English army to honor his dying father's wishes.
Yep.
The best drama in this movie, however, comes from Raju and Beam's friendship. Throughout the entire first half of the movie, we know that each of their goals will eventually clash with one another.
It's a ticking
There's
bomb.
no forced and contrived misunderstanding between them, but genuinely well-written conflict that leads to an epic battle between them halfway through.
Because if their missions, were not interrelated, if they were different, and then you want to create a, not organic conflict just to make them fight, it will not work. But because their missions from the start is set against each other, they have to cross each other only to, go to the other side. That's the good storytelling.
It definitely reminds me of Civil War, where Steve
Yep,
and Tony
one
want to
of my
fight for the
favorite
greater
films.
good, but have different ways of going about it. To me, Civil War provided some of the most intense and emotional drama in the MCU, and I think that R3 was able to bring that same level of emotion and intensity. The scene of Raju flogging Beam is the emotional peak of the film, where Beam absolutely refuses to kneel. He rallies his people with a song, which is what changes Raju's perception on just how to accomplish his goal. There was a lot of potential for this level of drama in the MCU lately that I don't think was taken full.
Shang-Chi really had the potential of, an Asian story which even Indians would connect to a lot. But they just westernized the whole concept a lot and just CG-fied this, that.
Advantage
Missed
of.
opportunity.
Shang-Chi, for example, had some really great and heavy drama set up between him and his father. This should have been leaned into more and made into the final conflict, but instead it fell into the same MCU formula of having to end with a giant CGI monster battle. Black Widow also had potential with the family dynamic, but instead of using this
It
for
was
personal
fine
drama
film
and
until
conflict,
this
it was
point,
turned into a
and then
quick
it
fest
just
with sarcastic comments from Yelena and roasting David Harbour about his weight. Eternals did try to establish a more serious tone than the other MCU films.
This film also had a lot of potential, but
But with so many other characters introduced at once, there wasn't enough time to get fully invested in any of them. I do have to credit Wakanda Forever, though.
yeah.
Even though I don't think it was a great movie overall, the way that they handled the tragic real-life death of Chadwick Boseman was respectful, emotional, and well done. No Way Home is a great example of a movie
Yep.
with drama that was intense and well-written. The killing of Aunt May and Peter's thirst for vengeance against the Green Goblin provided some of the best drama in the MCU. It's just
Yep.
too bad that some of the other Phase 4
I feel like watching the movie again.
films and shows didn't follow suit with this. All that
No film. Triple R I've seen so many times.
being said, I think R3's balance of lightheartedness and intensity was done perfectly. Reason number 5. R3 has a unique and energetic nature. As someone living in the US, I think a lot of the appeal of R3 comes from getting to experience another culture.
Yep.
Everything from the settings, dancing, and music gave
And nothing in that sense is like, oh, this is important about culture, you need to know, and they're establishing, shorts, dialogues, everything to know. These things are just there in the film, in the background, whatever. Just them climbing on that. We know what it is, right? As Indians, we know we don't need to explain explanation for that. But even outside, they don't need. It's just there. You're just fascinated by, oh, what is that? We know what is it, and they'll just have to Google it what it is. You don't have to explain what's happening and give dialogues there. No.
me a movie experience that I've never had before. As someone who had never seen a Bollywood or Tollywood movie, it was cool to see how another culture tells their stories. The song and dance number at the party may seem unnecessary and drawn out to some American audiences, but seems
It's
like
gonna get
these are a
Oscar.
staple of Indian filmmaking. Personally, I thought the scene was a lot of fun. The sheer amount of energy packed into the sequence was infectious, and I think the song has a good shot to win Best Original Song at the Oscars.
Yep,
This level of
it
energy is
must.
present throughout the entire runtime of the film, and it makes the 3 hours really fly by. Another staple of Indian filmmaking is having the main protagonist defy physics and be obscenely strong. R3
Yep.
is full of that, and while it may be too over the top for some people, it definitely suits my taste. If the US can turn their founding fathers into rappers, then India can turn their revolutionaries into superheroes. The MCU used to give us so much original and exciting content, but I think their formula is starting to wear thin for some American audiences. That's why content like R3, Squid Game, and Parasite have been so successful with
Nice.
US audiences.
I haven't seen Squid
They
Game
provide
yet.
fresh, new perspectives on storytelling. Like I mentioned before, I didn't make this video to bash Marvel because I think the MCU has done a lot for cinema over the last 15 years or so.
Yep.
I simply wanted to go over why I think R3 appeals to so many of the people who are starting to get bored of the Marvel formula. I'm rooting for the MCU's Phase 5, but also on the lookout for more epic films like R3.
Definitely check out MC Thomas. I'll put the link in the description. Very well made video. And I think Marvel is struggling nowadays because it's just unable to keep up with the world building and giving a good story because there's a ulterior motive in mind which will connect everything later in the other films, the big films. But yeah, it is definitely struggling. And I think the success of Triple R, a lot of people will study why it worked, why, what happened. I think Rajamouli all in an interview has said that he doesn't realize what really happened, what connected. And I think it is purely good storytelling, visual storytelling, basic human emotions which everyone can connect to. You don't need language, there's no barrier like that. In human emotions just connect. And it's a great story, so much fun, thrill, entertainment, and that's what MCU is just becoming, like a forced, kids don't like to study. It's becoming like that because, oh, for the Avenger movie I'm really excited for, I need to watch this 10 movies and 5 shows, and it's becoming work, and that's what Marvel is going wrong with. I think the video explained it beautifully, so definitely check them out. If you like this, hit the thumbs up button. You can check out this video next. I'll see you next time. Share this video. Bye bye.